But let me start by welcoming you here to the Stockholm School of Economics. We will devote this evening to a discussion about building human capital for the future of Ukraine. That's the title of this evening. I would actually like to add one more thing. Building human capital for the future of Ukraine and ourselves. I think it's extremely important to understand that we all stand to benefit from having Ukraine as a successful partner in the European Union. So this is really for all of us here to cherish the human capital development of Ukraine. So my name is Torbjörn Becker. I'm the director of the Stockholm Institute of Transition Economics here at the Stockholm School of Economics. Site and myself, we have been involved in the Kyiv School of Economics for a very long time. My first trip there was my first year here back in Stockholm in 2006. I can just say that they have already made an amazing journey in developing the Kyiv School of Economics and the Kyiv Economic Institute, and you will hear more about this here tonight. I would like to invite up on stage also Alina. Please, Alina. Alina Subkovic, she is the Nordic Ukraine Forum chairman or founder, or what is the right?
Chairwoman, probably.
Yeah, chairwoman, sorry. Yeah, I should have known. But I'm also happy to say that you also work with the Kyiv School of Economics. So I'm so happy that we can organize this evening here together tonight. Any opening words from your side?
I'm deeply honored to stay on the stage, and I'm very grateful to you, Torbjörn, and to the School of Economics for organizing this event. It is really very important, very crucial in these times to talk about Ukraine and to talk how resilient Ukraine is during this wartime. So I welcome you all to this event, wish you to be highlighted, and we can start.
Yes, and I think we should actually give the audience that showed up tonight a big warm hand of welcome too. So thank you for coming. All right, I'm going to let you sit down again for a few minutes. I just want to mention that tonight we will not only talk about education, we will have fantastic performances of Ukrainian artists. And I'm very, very excited to introduce to you Timur. Timur is going to sing us a song, but he has also promised to tell us a little bit about yourself and the song that you're going to perform for us tonight. So warm hand of welcome to our first singer.
Hi, my name is Timur. I'm from Ukraine, Kyiv, and today I'm gonna sing the song for you. Music. Can you on the music?
Timofey Milovanov, president of the Kyiv School of Economics. Warm hand of welcome. A little bit of technological innovations here. Okay. Make sure everyone can hear what we're saying up here. While we're preparing this presentation, I just want to tell you that the person that you're seeing up here now is one of the really true heroes of Ukraine today. He stayed in Ukraine. He built a school that basically tripled its intake of students. They are still in Kyiv, doing just amazing, amazing work. And this is why we started Friends of KC here in Stockholm, to make sure that we do our little part in supporting people like Timofey and Natalia doing all of their wonderful work in Kyiv. So I think he really deserves one more hand of welcome for coming here to Stockholm.
Thanks. Yeah. So I've been asked to talk a little bit about what it means to be a university during a war. It's for us an interesting reflection. We didn't have time to think about it actually, and we had some protocols in the beginning of the war, or before the war. We didn't expect it. I personally didn't believe a war would happen until the very last moment. I flew in to Kyiv 2 days or 3 days before the war, and I flew in because Lufthansa was the last airline flying to Kyiv, and I was in San Francisco, and I couldn't imagine myself being stuck in the US, not with my family, not with the university. I just couldn't simply imagine. It's very practical. So I wasn't thinking about the war. I was thinking about how, as a human, I would feel if everyone is in Ukraine. I cannot get to Ukraine if something happens, God forbid. Although I thought nothing would happen. So I was lucky to get on the last flight, and it was very difficult to get on the last flight. And it was full of people coming back in this last moment. And, you know, we were working on some protocols for the university in case a war happens. But, you know, how do you define a war? What is a war? Because Ukraine was already in a war state with Russia. And, you know, does it mean that there is more artillery or a couple of units or brigades or 5 or 10 or 15? You know, when do you trigger some activities at the university? So we actually designed several triggers, and one of them was missiles are landing in Kyiv. And we thought the probability of that is 0. But that was actually the trigger, which in 2 or 3 days created this war plan. And we bypassed the governance. We had a war committee. We had the person who was responsible for calling everyone. We abandoned the quorum, gave full responsibility to that war committee. So we actually prepared for that. And the protocols have to be very robust because you don't have any time for committee decision making. So the protocols were very, very simple. Everyone had to get to safety and then reconnect with the administration, with superiors, and decide whether they're available or not. But, you know, that was the beginning, and we pivoted in the first days of the war, trying to save the school. But essentially, I think the university during the war, later we realized that has to answer 4 questions. One is, it's very difficult to talk about the truth during war. Well, you know, mobilization is difficult in Ukraine right now. You read some elements of this, and some of it is true, some of it is not, some of it is propaganda. But it is true that not everyone wants to fight. And it's almost a biological response in some people. 1/3 of people, they flee the danger. And 1/3, let's say, freeze. And we just had a person who, in my view, is completely not ready and incapable of being in military, basically picked up from a metro station on Friday from business school, and he's going to most likely be conscripted. And it looks like all of us in Ukraine, at least males, will serve at some point. At least you have to be ready. And I came to understand that sometime in November, and I basically since that started, you know, learning how to shoot, you know, and try to lose weight and get in a better shape. Even though I'm on some supervisory boards of critical enterprises, and I'm an advisor, I'm an important person in education, so I'm reserved, and the government allows me to travel, to fundraise, and do other things. But nonetheless, I kind of resolved myself to being able to, you know, in case I'm drafted, I'll be drafted. Understand people. You can't judge people in war because people have to go through very difficult circumstances. Some people leave the country, some people betray the country, some people collaborate, some people die to protecting their values. These are all Ukrainians, they're all different. And where do you draw a line? You have to have a conversation like that, but that conversation cannot be public in most cases. And universities are some of the very few remaining places where you can have conversations like that. And it's very important for the society because you have to maintain democratic practices and protect democratic practices during the wartime. Because during the wartime, democratic practices get subdued. That's normal. That has to be expected. That actually the power gets centralized because it's war, it's military. There is a very clear vertical command. And you might have been seeing this in the news, the fight between Zaluzhny and Zelensky, the chief commander and the president. And to me, it's very clear. I might agree or disagree with the actual objective facts, but we're still a democracy, and we have a civilian in charge of the military. And whenever there's going to be a conflict between the military and the president, I'll be with the president because I want to maintain the democracy being in charge of the military, not the other way around. But war will bring these issues up because military will disagree with civilians how the war should be fought. And the resources are scarce now in Ukraine. The support, especially from the US, is delayed to say the least. That creates conflicts, and Russia amplifies these conflicts. So, understanding the war and accepting it is important. Then there are all these ethical considerations. What's our views on good Russians in Ukraine? I mean, it's easier to have this discussion outside of Ukraine, but in Ukraine it's very difficult because people have lost relatives, loved ones, friends. Because in many ways we think Russians were, as society, were too afraid to defend their democracy 10, 20, 30 years ago when they had a chance. And so, they have a candidate right now, which is, is it a real candidate? Is not a real candidate? Do we see protests? Do we see any risk, any mass resistance, any desire to protect democracy? For Ukrainians, it's very difficult to say that we see it because 8 or 10 years ago in 2014, we were dying on the streets in Ukraine because our own pro-Russian police at the time, secret police, were shooting protesters. And we had to overcome all of this. And, we could have chosen not to do that. And actually have friends who died in 2014, who were shot by our own police at the time. And the country has reformed since that. We now have military 10 years later or 8 years later, military which is capable of stopping Russia in tracks during the invasion. While 8 years before the invasion, we had a pro-Russian president who ordered to shoot our police, was not with the people. So, these ethical questions come up, and they are simple ones. On the first day of the war, my little sister wanted to evacuate. My big sister didn't want to evacuate. Okay, so do we abandon her or do we not? And what about adults? Elderly, especially elderly, they don't want to evacuate. So what do? You leave your elderly in the front cities to be overrun and move with your children out? Or you stay with children because you want to protect the elder, because elderly refuse to, or you force them. You force them physically because they literally refuse. So there are questions like that. The war brings up a lot of ethical questions. And then people who have been under occupation, they got through, they survived in different ways. People who left the country illegally. So, tons of things. People who don't pay taxes today, for example. Okay, so, but these are two questions: understanding the war, having the conversation about, and talking about ethics of the war. University is perhaps the very, if not the only place where you can have those conversations in peace, because the society is traumatized. And then there's community support. So we have to help community during the war, and then we have to maintain human capital during the war for resilience and prepare for the post-war. So that was a long slide. The rest will be very quick. I hope it works. Yeah, so in practical terms, when the war starts, you don't have domestic donors. The government and stakeholder objectives are different. People leave the country or join the military, and student body disappears or changes fundamentally. So, you don't have any business model anymore. You have to reinvent yourself. And, what we had this governance and lack of corruption and transparency and trust, and helped us to survive. But we also leveraged the idea that we do what the market needs. And we worked in 4 areas. We have university. We worked on talent retention in Ukraine. Because, the entire world wants to help Ukrainians, and especially in academia. They want to help Ukrainian academia by offering contracts outside of Ukraine. which is great for every individual person. But it is not so good for institutions, because we end up with massive brain drain. But we need smart people in Ukraine during the war to win the war, to defend ourselves, to resist, to innovate, to write policy. So that was one problem. The same with children, with kids, with students. If we are not there at Kyiv School of Economics as a good, prominent, world-class university, these kids wouldn't have been in Ukraine today. They would have been outside of Ukraine. Maybe it would be good for each of them individually, but we also have cases where people are coming back from France, from Latvia, from the US to study because they argue with their parents. They fight with their parents. They come back to Ukraine because they want to be in Ukraine during the war. That's how they feel. They don't want to do economics anymore. They all want to do engineering. They all want to create machines which will defend the country. And I'll have a slide in the end of this. But that's the talent goes. They want to be in Ukraine during the nation building moment, but they want to help Ukraine to build this nation. So then we of course have business school, and business school, their job is very clear: help businesses. And I'll have a slide. Then Natalia Shapoval will talk about KC Institute, our policy think tank, what we do. But we help to shape policy and we do global advocacy. And then KC Foundation pivoted away from helping the university to helping the community. And, you know, this is how our university improved. Our university opened 8 new majors. We had 7. Now we have 15. We have increased 3.5 times in admission numbers during the war. We are now top ranked in the country, even in the new programs, like in applied math. We are now top. We just opened applied math this summer to respond to this desire of mathematicians to be in the applied field, to do something which is helpful, more immediate. We opened psychology. Why psychology? Because trauma. We opened law. Why? Because we need a critical mass of lawyers to fight corruption. It's a culture issue too. So we need to, that's why. So we're trying to expand this culture to other majors which are critically important for Ukraine. And of course, we're very grateful to the entire world. Almost 57, almost 60, 57 institutions, educational, collaborate now with Kyiv School of Economics. But you know, Sweden is a prominent partner. We just talked today about our joint project with you, with SITE, and also with Södertörn University. That's just one example. What started new in the business school is that we had to create this ecosystem of startup innovation, because everyone is doing Miltech startups. Everyone in the country is doing Miltechs. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of startups, and they need infrastructure. So the business school responds to that. And, you know, we do business consulting to maintain businesses, to help them relocate, survive, rebuild, but we also do research. We raised almost $90 million, and thank you, many of you who donated, and most of it went into, since the beginning of the war, and most of it went to humanitarian support. Some of this, you know, is some of this is purely humanitarian, like medical kits or medical equipment or rebuilding a clinic. Some of this is training pilots for military. Some of this is providing innovation. So we're trying to enhance the innovation in Ukraine. But also we bought out our building, and you know, our students contribute in kind, not just financially. They go and do things. Natalia, you want to talk real quick about what your institute does? And then I'll finish with our plans and we'll be done. But
I don't think you're allowed to just call her Natalia.
Okay.
This is Natalia Shapoval. She runs the Kyiv Economic Institute. When we started out working with the Kyiv School and setting up the institute, you were like 3 or 4 people there.
Yes.
Today, this is an operation with how many people?
70.
All right. They are also the really brain power between all the sanctions work, helping the government in so many areas. So I think you actually deserve your own round of warm welcome applause for coming here. All right.
Thank you. very quick. So this is what we do. As Timothy said, we pivoted at the beginning of the full-scale invasion, and we do what we believe in. We are a lot of smart people, but we are very naive, and we want to make the world better after Ukraine wins the war. And so we believe in making Russia pay, in accountability. Because without accountability and punishment for what Russian regime is doing towards Ukraine, there will be this evil will grow. So we collect damages with drones, with satellites, analyze them so that when the process of compensation starts, there will be all data available to do so. We believe that economic measures can help in winning the war. Therefore, we work on sanctions and we really dig very deeply into the oil market and into the components that Ukrainian military find on the battlefield to create numbers and show them to policymakers in the Yermak Makfol group, to former diplomats who advocate, then to the governments of G7 sanction coalition, to give them numbers where sanctions work or don't. We also believe that economy is very important to maintain the capacity to defend Ukraine. So we do everything basically our government asks us to help with. This means help with analytical materials to fundraise into the budget. Like there is a big program right now, whereas EU plans to help Ukraine called Ukraine Plan. So we help to do this, for example, and many other things, both working with policymakers and on the ground. We have, for example, a recovery lab where people from regions, for students, everyone can come and do something small to help with recovery. And a big stream of our work is food security. We engage in the dialogue with African countries who suffer from increasing prices because of what Russia is doing when blocking the exports from Ukraine. We do modeling on the agricultural markets, surveying business, because our farmers also suffer a lot because of this blocked exports, and for the economy it's very critical that they start really working as it was before the war. Thank you very much, Timothy. I am done.
Yeah. Thank you. We need to do something with that mic, right, Dominic? Okay. Yes. So basically, we do what we can. Okay. Yeah, and I think everyone does what they can. You know, we now had a chance to breathe a little bit, not much. You know, the major challenge in Ukraine for us is basically burnout of people. It's the almost, you know, the third year of the war starting. And it's tough in the sense that, you know, it takes effort to collect yourself in the morning. And I have tough weeks, and everyone has tough weeks, regardless of what actually the objective facts on the ground are. It just, you know, it's difficult to live in an environment in which you have missile alerts daily. You see, you know, once I kind of lost it completely. There was another attack. Missiles were all over Kyiv, and I just went on my balcony and put a chair, and I was watching how Patriots intercept ballistic missiles, because I just, you know, yeah, it was stupid, but you know, I just, you know. So it takes a toll, and I think we have some projects with foundation which look at children. We have about 44% of children in Ukraine currently exhibiting PTSD symptoms, but they are living in trauma. And then there's deportation of children, and we're trying to buy them out from Russia, and you know. And some of these children are 1 year old or 2 years old, you know, and they come home they're all traumatized, but how many of them left there in Russia? And so it's tough, and it's not right. But I think going forward in our university, we would want to focus on three things. One is, of course, maintaining democratic practices. I'm not blaming anyone. The war takes away democratic practices. It does, and partly that's what Putin counts on. Put pressure, take, centralized power to respond, to create internal political conflicts, undermine democracy too. The entire project is about undermining democracy. And war does it. A war in any country does. And, we have now powerful generals who are likely to be serious candidates in the next elections whenever they come. And, I don't want to live in the country run by generals. But they're heroes, but they're generals. So, these are tough choices. I mean, we'll have to manage this. It's not going to be easy. I think Ukraine has had this really, really difficult choices throughout the last 30 years. And every time it made the right decision. So I have trust that we will manage through this. But that's not easy. And I think maintaining democratic practices is important. That's the role of universities. The second one, of course, we're the Kyiv School of Economics, so we're economics university. So we must work on resilience right now and recovery post-war. But the third one, we want to enter the real sector because we see the talent response by wanting to be, they all want to be engineers today. That's the most desired profession in Ukraine, to be an engineer who does something with drones, with AI, with new technology, maybe with bioengineering to help people who lost, part of their body. And we have tens of thousands of people like that. So bionics. So kids want to do something which helps people today, maybe build back a clinic or a house or create a drone or a arm, bionics arm or something like that. So, I think this is, we're trying to build the school in this direction. So I'll just give you an example of how we're thinking about engineering, although we know that we're talking about economics here. But I think without real industries, without Ukraine getting into international supply chains, being a part of production chains, value chains, Ukraine doesn't have a future. But all the foundations are there, the EU market, talent. So, we are talking, for example, with international partners like Zurich, an engineering school, because there are a powerful Ukrainian community on the faculty, which engineers, and they want to contribute to Ukraine. And so, they're thinking about helping us create dual diplomas, as we did on economics, in these areas, in electrical, mechanical, materials engineering. We already have software engineering in KSC. Biotech, it's a long shot, but still. But, we're going to start with online dual hybrid programs and bring kids to study in the labs in the summer. And eventually we'll bring labs to Ukraine. And all of that is feasible. So we will replace the legacy Soviet Union universities, engineering schools, which basically, in my view, are failing. And we'll bring engineering in Ukraine. This is just one example of what we want to do. But we do much more on economics, and we will do much more on democracy. We have the law major now. We have memory studies, which we need to remember our history, the good and the bad, so that we avoid the bad in the future. We're building a university. And I think this is an example. People say, research says that the nation building process happens during two periods of time. Either there is a war, so a threat to existence, or there is a crisis and a need to create a tax base. So you basically have to create fiscal ability of the state to collect taxes. And for that, you need a social contract with the businesses that, there's a rule of law, and then people are paying taxes. And I think both are present in Ukraine. And it turns out universities are also being created during this crisis because the government needs our help with creating new social contract, and national threats create demand for merit-based promotion in science and education rather than a loyalty-based promotion, which is the sort of pre-existing Soviet system. So it's fascinating to see, but it's very painful, but it's also at the same time very empowering because the war brings the worst and the best in humans. And I think Ukrainians demonstrate that there is humanity, and humanity is good. And I leave you with that. Thank you.
I think it's a little bit challenging to our next speakers to enter the stage now, but I think we also want to share with you what people here in Stockholm are thinking about doing when it comes to supporting the Kyiv School of Economics and other academics in Ukraine in this effort of building the human capital for the future of Ukraine. So if I can invite up on stage Katarina Hägg, CEO of SSE Executive Education, welcome. Anders Solosgård, Deputy Director of Site, welcome. Stefan Fall from Swedfund. Now you will have to do like they do the little kids, that they toss the ball for the word, but here you toss the microphone instead. But our panel here is going to give you a little bit of insights on what different people and institutions are actually thinking about when it comes to supporting the human capital of Ukraine. So Katarina, we'll start with you.
Well, thank you. So first of all, thank you very much for sharing, Timofey and Natalia. It's, of course, great to be here and get the sense of urgency as well, which we, together with SITE, have been sharing for some time, the whole duration of the war, of course, and we have been thinking about how we, as an institution, the Stockholm School of Economics, can help. And I think there are two perspectives in which we can hopefully contribute. One is sharing what we already have. So I think in a little while you will meet with Ukrainian students who are here at SSE, and we are welcoming them to our bachelor program, to our master program already. That's fantastic to see. But we are also looking forward to welcoming MBA students as guests in an ongoing executive MBA program that we have as well, and hopefully also being able to fundraise for an MBA students or several to be an ongoing student in the next cohort coming. So that's sharing what we already have. But then, of course, I work with executive education, and we have always worked with strengthening communities, and we would like to use the experience we have from working with both public sector and the business community to build long-term capacity, economic resilience, and to be part of the reconstruction, the rebuilding of Ukraine, which I have also learned is already ongoing. We can do this by sharing the knowledge we have, by inviting those who design programs, by sharing our pedagogical approaches, by helping create curricula that will build long-term impact. And I think one of the most important prerequisites there is that everything we do needs to be research-based. That's why the collaboration with SITE is so important. With the Kyiv School of Economics, we have heard how important it is to fight for truth. And we also know we came to the Baltics in 1994, so we know exactly how close it is to be enthralled by other ways of thinking and corruption when rebuilding communities. So those two perspectives is, I think, and hope, one way or two ways that we can help.
Thank you, Katarina.
Thank you. Should I have that little thing on as well? Thank you very much. Super happy to see so many of you here today for this important task. So when you think about human capital in a context like Ukraine and probably everywhere, probably the first thing that comes to mind is students and education. But creating human capital is, of course, also about developing research capacity and research skills, and in the end, to develop actual research outputs of policy relevance. So what I'm going to spend perhaps a couple of minutes on now is to talk about a very new and fresh research project that we have started up. So it's pretty big and it's pretty long term, but we just started it, so I cannot say anything in terms of results. We have nothing so far. But I can share a few details in terms of the ideas that we have in mind. So this is a collaborative project between SAI, the Kyiv School of Economics, of course, Södertörn University here in Stockholm as well, and Tor Vergata University in Rome. And we also have some other international scholars who are part of the project. The kind of big and slightly lofty theme of the project is reconstructing Ukraine. But to make that a little bit more concrete, we have broken it down in 4 different sub-themes. The first sub-theme has to do with public procurement, markets, and corruption. So the massive destruction brought on by the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine has, of course, created also an incredible need for reconstruction when that is possible. Part of that reconstruction is going to be in the public sector, reconstructing infrastructure and housing and so on. And for this to sort of take place in a good way, we need to go through some kind of public procurement processes. However, there's potential risks and challenges and trade-offs there. We need a lot of things rebuilt quickly, but we also need this process to be fair, non-corrupt, and formal. So how do we create a robust system of public procurement in that kind of challenging environment? A second sub-theme we are talking about is something that has already been brought up here that has to do with agricultural resilience and global food security. So we all know at this point that Ukraine is a very important producer of agricultural products and an important exporter of agricultural products to the global markets as well. However, the sort of agricultural sector is, of course, challenged by the full-scale war. So how do we help Ukrainian farmers? How do we create a more resilient agrarian system and make sure that export markets are open and available for the benefit of the Ukrainian economy and for the benefit of global food security? The third research theme has to do with sort of reconstruction of the urban sector and urban planning. So once again, we have massive destruction of cities as well as villages. If there's a tiny, tiny little silver lining in this, however, is that it actually creates an opportunity to rebuild the urban setting from sort of an old, more kind of Soviet-style system in many cases to what hopefully can be a more modern, more livable, more sort of economically, socially, ecologically sustainable urban environment. So contributing to that is also part of what we want to do. And then the fourth and the final sub-theme of this research program has to do with public opinion, EU accession, and exposure to conflict. So do we see convergence in terms of individual values and sort of social preferences among the population in Ukraine towards that in Western Europe, within the European Union? What role does exposure to conflict play in attitudes towards to foreigners and things like that? That's kind of also something we want to look into in order to potentially facilitate the EU accession process in this case. And one thing I do want to point out is that in order to be able to do anything like this, collaborating with the Kyiv School of Economics is completely essential because, as Natalia was pointing out, they are the ones who have all the data, have all the analytical and analysis kind of skills and resources to be able to look in detail into many of these issues. But of course, in order to be able to sustain that, they need sort of sustained financial support for that process as well. But in the end, hopefully, we managed to sort of produce not only academic products that have significant academic value, but that are also policy relevant and can inform policymaking in Ukraine and maybe in the future other countries who unluckily end up in similar situations.
Thank you, Anders. Stefan.
Do I need that? Or can you hear me now? Thank you. My name is Stefan Falk. I represent Swedfund International AB. It's a Swedish state-owned company And first, let me thank Torbjörn and his team for inviting me for this very important seminar. We have, as an institution, an increasing focus on Ukraine, and we have received additional funds for 2023 and 2024 to do projects and investments in Ukraine. So I'll use my institution and the work we do as an example of the importance of skills, competence, knowledge, and human capital for the common goal we have, and that's a full victory for Ukraine in the war, and also Ukraine's full membership in the European Union, and also another 1,000 years of good friendship and cooperation with Ukraine, because we've already had 1,000 years, isn't it, since the Vikings came to Kyiv. So we are looking at that. We are a state-owned enterprise. We are a development finance institution. It differs us from the international finance institutions that most of you know. That's the World Bank, Africa Development Bank, Asian Development Bank, and so on. We belong to the European Development Finance Group. So there's a Swedfund in Norway. It's called Norfund. There's a Swedfund in Finland, and it's called Fund, and so on. So we have 15 of us in Europe. We always do co-investments, and we command a substantial capital that we use for investments in the private sector. And this is one of our business branches. I represent the project development branch in our work. The reason why we exist and we are funded by the development aid budget is that there's a shortage of capital for investments in private sector in OECD DAC countries. There's also a shortage of well-developed investment grade projects that are sustainable, what we normally like to call bankable projects. And I represent that part of our business operation. I should also say we work in the project accelerator. We work very closely with in a Team Sweden setup. So I see some of my colleagues here in Team Sweden. I see Kurt at the Swedish Institute sitting over there. I see colleagues from SIDA, and together we work very closely also with Swedish companies to try to promote Swedish solutions in core sectors such as energy, waste, public transport, and so on. We have, as I said, we have increasingly engagements in Ukraine, and we are looking for more projects. So I will stay on after this at the mingle. There's a mingle. So anyone who would like to talk to me, I'd be very happy to see if we can pick up a more detailed discussions on opportunities. But just to give you a flavor of what we do in Ukraine from my program in Swedfund is, so we have cooperation with the Ministry of Territories. So we do work in 7 or 8 cities where we develop feasibility studies, full engineering feasibility studies for investments in water, wastewater treatment, and also in district heating. We also do work with the Ministry of Digitalization. So we have a very close cooperation with the team that are developing a 112 system for Ukraine, which currently is under rollout. All these projects we try to match the investment interest from international institutions and provide these institutions with a full grade, again, engineering level feasibility study that can be financed. And currently we have 10 to 15 projects, and we are looking at doubling this year if we are successful. And to finalize, this would not be possible without the human capital that Ukraine can provide in the ministries and the local consultants and in all the technicians that work with us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm guessing that Timothy may come to you in the break and tell you about a few projects that you should bank with them. So, thank you. I will now let you go back to your seats, and I'm very, very excited to invite on stage Yana Kovalova. Warm hand. This is singer and songwriter from Ukraine. She has participated already in Idol here in Sweden and The Voice of Ukraine. So please tell us a few words about yourself and what you're going to perform. Thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I wanted to say that I'm very honored and happy to be here for such an important case. So 5 years ago, I've been studying music here in Stockholm. And after the full-scale invasion happened, I relocated completely here to Sweden. And I'm very happy that I have opportunity and possibility to support Ukraine in every way with my voice. And today I would like to sing a song that's called Dva kolory, which means two colors. And this is the song that has been written in 1964 during the Soviet era. But it was kind of like a symbol of a resistance of Ukrainian culture. And this song is about two colors that are embroidered on vyshivankas, which is embroidered shirts, which I'm happening to wearing now. And black color means sadness, but red color means love. Червоне то любов, а чорне то журба. And these embroidered shirts were usually embroidered by mothers and given to their children for a good luck. So this song basically is a wishing of a good luck to the future, to the children and to the future of Ukraine. So I would love to sing it right now. I hope you're going to enjoy that. Thank you so much for inviting me today. It was a great honor. And thank you for amazing speakers from Ukraine and Sweden. I'm very happy to support Ukraine in every way that I can. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, I know I cannot compete with that voice, that's for sure. Wow, that was amazing. I would like to invite back on stage Alina. You have already met Alina. We also have 3 students here from the school. We have Alina, Lesia, Volodymyr. Please come and join me on stage. And I hope all my friends from Ukraine excuse my poor pronunciation of your name. So feel free to correct me whenever I'm messing these things up. Alina, I will start with you. Give the floor to you, please.
Thank you, Torbjörn. Well, so first of all, once again, it's a big honor to be here today, and I'm glad to see so many faces, because really just understanding, I can speak already, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
Understanding that it is over 700 days of brutal aggression and more than 700 days of resistance is unbelievable. And when I'm in Ukraine, I talk to people, it is very clear people will resist and people know that there will be the victory, even though it is very, very harsh and tough time. And well, today I represent 2 roles. First is the head of advocacy organization, Nordic Ukraine Forum. So our initial idea behind creating the organization was to build bridges between Nordic countries and Ukraine so that we could cooperate, we could share knowledge, and we can do things together to really have the future, common future, great future. With the invasion, we've become the voice for Ukraine. We organize different discussions and also demonstrations. It has been over 90 demonstrations in the invasion. We do it regularly on the weekly basis. So everyone is welcome to join us. Sunday, 12 o'clock, Sergel Story. Please be there. And of course, I'm welcoming you to the 24th of February, to the big demonstration that will take place at Sergelstorg as well. 3 o'clock. It will be as strong as last year, and I hope it will be an important message and message of support and solidarity. Also, I am the visiting professor at Kyiv School of Economics. I don't know if Timothy or Natalia knew this, but well, this is the new role, and I've just returned from Ukraine, where I started the course. And this is basically something that impresses me a lot, the way how Ukrainian education has adapted, and especially how Kyiv School of Economics has become really a hub that unites so many different experts and so many bright, smart cookies, everyone is there. So from the security perspective, it is also very interesting case, and it has been very efficient in the way that students go to the university, and we know that Russia tries to kill us all on the daily basis, and we don't know when the next missile attack will be. But for these cases, and it was the experience that I've experienced myself. So when the missile attack starts in Kyiv, everyone goes down to the shelter, but everything is done in so calm way. So there is no panic. There is nothing like this, and it's very organized. You have a schedule, and in the schedule, you already know what will be your shelter room number in case of such situation. So we experienced this. We went down to the shelter, and we just continued our lesson. So like nothing has happened at all. We were talking about qualitative methods, about literature that we were reading, and this is so fascinating to see the way how people can adapt and still be very resilient and continue their education in the time of the big war. And we all understand it is really the major war of our times. It can be compared only to the Second World War. And we also understand with you that the way how this war ends will define the future of Europe, of the continent. And that is why it is so important to support Ukraine and also to support education in Ukraine, because as Timofey mentioned, so all these people, they will be the future of Ukraine, with the reforms, with everything, with the new government, with the business, with startups, so all these people who get knowledge now there. So probably with this, I will stop, but I'm just very grateful for all of you coming here and supporting Ukraine. It is tremendously important for both Ukraine and for Sweden, for having the global world, free world, after the victory of Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'm turning over to you. Did you decide the order? So you get to start.
Okay, thank you, Alina, for giving us some time to relax, but it did not help. So I will just remind you that we are 3 students here in master program from Ukraine. My name is Alina, very nice name, Volodymyr, and Lesya. And I'll begin my speech by saying thank you to SSE and faculty members that we are able to stand here and talk. SSE has always been a place where future leaders are formed. Therefore, we are happy to hear that SSE talks not only about climate change and grand challenges, but also about the violent destruction of human capital in countries that suffer hostilities. We feel very welcomed here in Stockholm. However, our hearts pull us back home, like would probably any of yours do. And just like Alina, I recently came from Ukraine. I traveled to 3 very different cities. It's Lviv, Kyiv, and Dnipro. Dnipro is the city which is closer to the front line and has constant air raids. The distance to the front line constitutes very different lifestyles, especially for students. But But one thing was consistent, and I totally agree with Alina on that. People want to live and develop in place they love, and they work hard and build a brighter future whatsoever. Building a quality future is not possible without education. And we all heard the quote, a very simple quote that probably everybody heard in their childhood: give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. And it's still relevant today. Education plays a pivotal role in economic growth, which I'm sure we all know being at business school. By supporting and contributing to academic development in Ukraine, you make a long-term impact that will be relevant in any situation and circumstance. And in this sense, we are very happy and proud to have Kyiv School of Economics. They stayed strong during dark times. And although we are not in Kyiv, not in Ukraine right now, we can notice the big and profound impact they make on Ukrainian youth and Ukrainian society. Thank you. I'll pass forward to Volodymyr.
Thank you, Alina. Right, now hopefully it's okay. Yes. So let me start by saying that Ukraine is famous for its rich and fertile soil, but each time the seeds of human capital are planted there, Russia tries to stomp on them, to destroy the tender sprouts, and to devalue the uniqueness and heterogeneity of Ukrainian culture, to feed their imperial appetites. We are all now in Sweden, a country that annually gives out a Nobel Prize, a celebration of cutting edge of human achievement. 7 of the laureates over the years were born in Ukraine, yet none of them held a citizenship at the time of getting the award. Sorry. Due to foreign interventions and oppression, the sprouts couldn't grow and mature at home, had to take their talents elsewhere. And yet, those who left Ukraine is still just a minuscule proportion. Many more were repressed, halted in the development process, or as heroes about whom you can read in the Unissued Diplomas exhibition, died defending their country. Just imagine how many human advancements were forever lost in history and how many more are in danger now. In their fighting, Ukrainians show endless resolve and give clear indication of the choice we made long time ago, and the choice we have to fight for every day, to align ourselves with Western democratic values and to play a role in advancing humanity, not holding it back. Every day, Ukrainians are trying to seize the attack of the backwards dark ideology. For society as a whole to achieve progress, it is imperative to make sure that this battle is won, and won decisively for the long run. In Ukraine, the immediate war-related issues are nearly overwhelming, and the long-term goals and ambitions, among which education quality, are moved down the political agenda. Yet, both for the near term, support in financial, diplomatic, or policy effort, what IC is engaging in now, as well as for longevity in aligning with progressive democratic values, education is vital. In Stockholm School of Economics, we, the students, are taught to be free, to embrace the science-based approach, to be reflective, empathetic, entrepreneurial, to advance the future and create the planet of tomorrow. This is a mission very similar to that of Kyiv School of Economics, but with limited government capacity, international support is needed. Let me just say that helping KIC is like investing in tools that will allow Ukrainian human capital to bloom.
So a lot has already been said today.
And in conclusion, we would want to express our deepest gratitude to all the incredible partners that have supported Ukrainian human capital in any possible way. And your unwavering commitment to the cause has already made a significant impact. And I must say that your support transcends simple financial contribution. It's a testament to your belief in the power of justice and positive change. And as we reflect on everything that has already been achieved, we would like to encourage each and every one of you to continue this journey with us. Your continued support not only transforms the lives, but it also shapes a brighter and more compassionate future. Together, let us forge ahead, creating a legacy of compassion, impact, and shared success. Thank you all to being the driving force behind this mission, and we look forward to many more milestones achieved in cooperation with our valued partners. Thank you so much.